For the thrift flip I'm doing today, I'm going to show you guys exactly how I would do it because I have a sewing machine and all the other equipment that I need to do these projects. In the past, I've done a thrift flip or a found to fab on my channel where I utilize hot glue instead of sewing it. After many videos later, looking at what other people are doing and talking to my friends who also do thrift flips, while using hot glue as a medium to affix something is a lot more accessible and doesn't take as much skill as a sewing machine, it's not the right way to do things. So you will notice through all my videos going forward, I'm going to do things the best way that they need to be done versus cutting corners just because I feel like it might be more accessible to use a hot glue gun. If there is an alternative way to do it, I will make sure to let you guys know that. But I want you to do things that are going to be done correctly and to show you things that are still going to last down the line and actually be a quality product when this is all said and done. Just putting it out there as a disclaimer, that's what you'll see from me going forward. I will not be utilizing hot glue in place of thread ever again. To start with our thrift flip, I am going to start with this awesome like 90s spaghetti strap dress that we got in the Garage Sale thrift haul. I'm going to insert a picture right here. It's just really long and kind of frumpy and it's not cute at all. So I want to shorten it. I love how deep the pockets are. I don't want the pockets to hang out at all, but I am going to shorten it just so it's much more of a comfortable, flowy summertime dress. And less grandma moo-moo. So based on the picture, I know where I need to cut it because the pattern's really blocky. I've marked that with a pin and I'm just gonna lay out the dress and kind of get everything cut off and then we'll get it sewn up. The hem on this, I'm just going to turn, stitch. What that means is that you take the raw edge of the fabric and measure, fold it over and measure. I usually do about a 1/2 inch and you can use any ruler to do this. To start it, I will mark 1. So this is a 1/2 inch in. Then I'm going to turn that one more time. That makes sure that my raw edge is inside the hem. So now nothing is going to fray, everything's encased inside the hem of my dress. Finished hemming up the bottom of the dress and I realized when I was cutting it that it actually has like levels to it, so I think that this is going to make a really cute bottom of the dress. It kind of just acts as a third ruffle, so I'm really excited to see what it looks like now that it's been all hemmed up, and I was able to make sure that I didn't interfere with the nice big pockets at all. This is a really great thrift flip project for a beginner sewer because it's just a straight line. A big dress like this with a nice big wide hem is going to be really forgiving if your lines aren't perfectly straight. A couple of things that this dress has going for it is it's not stretchy at all. So if you're going to do a project like this and you're a beginner sewer, try and get something that's not super stretchy. And any sort of pattern fabric is going to be a lot more forgiving with the lines that you have and whether or not your hem is maybe just a smidge crooked in any way. The next thrift flip that we have is using these two t-shirts that we got in the garage sale thrift flip. This is the Rasta Cat shirt and the Of Mice and Men shirt. I'm going to turn these into reusable bags. Right now, it's hard to take your reusable bags because they're all that like crunchy fabric and they're not really washable. Old t-shirts are perfect to use for reusable bags for shopping right now. You can just throw them in the washing machine to make sure that they're clean and sanitized after your shopping trip. So I'm going to show you how to do it two different ways. One way is so easy, involves absolutely no sewing, just a couple of cuts with your scissors and some knots, and it's a really, really easy project, maybe even to do with your kids. The other way I'm going to show you is to actually stitch it up and reinforce it and make sure that it does last a little bit longer. So the first one I'm going to do is the one with just the knots, and then we will sew up the other one. Once it's laid out, basically what you're doing is the neck of the shirt here will be used for the top of the bag where the stuff comes into the bag. So we're going to cut this open and make it just a little bit bigger. Then the handles of the bag are going to be the sleeve holes. So we're going to cut the sleeves off as well, and that's going to be the handles where you can hold the bag. And then the bottom of the bag, or the bottom of the shirt, is actually going to be the bottom of our bag. So I'll show you how to close up the bottom of this without doing any sewing. First, I am going to work on the bottom because the top is just cuts, and I'm just going to keep as much structural integrity as I can right now. This is really, really easy project to do. I'm going to turn the shirt inside out, and I'm going to mark up from the bottom hem. I want the bag to be as big as possible. So I'm gonna do 4 inches from the bottom hem. You can do these as long as you want, but I'm just going to mark 4 inches up from the bottom hem every so often around the shirt. Okay, so I've got my little dots marked out on the shirt. So now I'm just going to take my scissors. You want to make sure they're nice and sharp scissors. I will link these down below for you. And I'm just going to cut up to the dots, stopping right at the dot. I'm going to do that at every dot that I made, and then I'm going to go in between and add a few more. Two important things when you're cutting these is on the sides of the shirt, you do not want to cut up the side. So you want the side of the shirt to stay folded. You're going to tie this as one tie instead of 2. This makes sure that the corner of your bag doesn't end up tearing all the way up and gives you a little bit more support in the bag. The other thing is you do not want your strips very, very small, because the smaller they are, the less structure the bag actually has. I'm going to take these strips that are currently 2 inches wide, and I'm going to cut them in half, so they'll be about 1 inch wide. None of your strips have to be perfectly even. You just don't want them super thin. Now to finish this, I'm going to flip it right side out. I mean, this just makes a fun shirt, I guess, with all the little ruffles at the bottom. Okay, I'm going to start by tying off the side ones first, because I want these ones to stay nice and tight. And when you're tying it, you want to get as close to the cut line as possible. You don't want any gaps if you can avoid it. So this is my first knot. I'm going to do the one on the opposite side as well. Okay, this gives us a nice working point. So now all of our knots can be made all the way across. You're going to tie the front one and the back one to each other as high up as you can get it. And you can see it's just perfectly like held together at the bottom. There's no holes. I can put my hand down to the bottom and not really reach through at all. If you're not a fan of the look of the tassels at the bottom of the bag, you can actually flip it inside out once you tie it. So just tie it while it's still inside out. And then at the bottom, you just have this kind of crocheted look. So now you're ready to actually make the top of the bag. And to do that, I'm gonna cut the sleeve on this side of the seam instead of on the inside of the seam, because I want to leave this seam on the bag. This seam is what gives the shirt its structure up here. And again, to keep it from ripping all the way down, I'm going to keep this seam in place. So I'm going to take this scissor and cut just on the outside of the seam. One sleeve has been removed and the seam is still there. And that just makes sure that this has some structural support. I'm going to do the same thing to the other sleeve now, and then we will have two handles, and then we'll just cut a nice opening for the top of the bag, and this one will be done. Both of the sleeves have been cut off now, and we have handles for the bag. I'm going to take this past the collar, about 1 finger's width, and cut through the shirt. And I'm going to get as close to the bottom of the collar as possible. And then come back up and out to about the finger width here. The collar has now been cut, and now you have a bag. The next one I'm going to do is basically the exact same principle as the no-sew one that we just finished, but I'm going to actually stitch this one up and make it a little bit more structured, a little bit more secure. This shirt I thought was so fun. I love this book, and I am going to leave this as big as I possibly can. I'm not going to cut any of this. I'm going to leave it, I'm going to flip it inside out. And make sure that my sides are nice and even. And to keep them in place so that they don't slip, I'm just going to pin it on either end and in the middle. So to do the next part, I'm going to leave the shirt inside out, but I'm going to do the same cuts that we did on the other shirt. To give this a little bit more structure, like we talked about, I'm going to sew this as well. And to do that, I want to leave enough fabric here to flip over. We're going to do the same turn, turn, stitch that we did on the dress. I left about 1 inch of fabric from the seam to the end of the fabric, and I'm going to open it up and turn this to meet the seam that's there, and then turn it on the actual seam so that the seam is what is the edge of the bag. Really awesome looking. With a stretchy fabric, sometimes I want to show you my mistake. So with a stretchy fabric, sometimes the fabric gets away from you and you miss a part of the seam. Now, if this was a professional garment, I would go through and I'd seam rip that and I'd restitch it. But even though this is a gift, my friend knows I'm not absolutely perfect. I'm just going to stitch it over just so that I can make sure it's all caught so nothing snags and rips the bag. And it's absolutely okay to make a mistake. We're all human. At the beginning and the end of that stitch, I did do a little bit of a back stitch to make sure that the stitching was actually nice and secure so it didn't fall out. This handle is nice and strong, and I don't feel like it's going to break at all. I'm very happy with this. I'm going to do the exact same thing to the other sleeve, and then we'll do the opening. Now, with the way that the picture is here, I don't want to cut this hole too big, but t-shirt fabric is not the most forgiving fabric. So it is a lot harder to sew it as a round than it would be to sew it as a square.
Okay, I stopped here because I want to not even show you guys any of the things that I did wrong because I don't want to confuse anyone. Here is how I would actually do the neck of this shirt. Cut it open exactly the way we did on the tie-dye shirt, and then stitch it the way we did on the sleeves of this shirt. End of story. Everything else that I did is just confusing and wrong, and I shouldn't have done it that way. But again, we all make mistakes, and I want you guys to have a good finished product, so I'm not even going to confuse you with all the mistakes I made on the neck of this shirt.
So we have a nice, big, reusable bag now, and I think it's really, really fun. This one will hold up a lot more, and it'll last a lot longer than the other one that we did. But again, this one I'm actually giving as a gift, so I think that I wanted it to be a little bit stronger. These are done, and I'm excited for the last project. It doesn't involve the sewing machine at all. It's a very easy, quick project, and I'm excited. I'm going to trim down these planner divider pages that I saved out of a planner from last year, and I'm going to trim them to fit in the frames that we thrifted. Then I'm going to sketch out the sayings that I want on them and fill it in with one of these markers. If you were super amazing at handwriting and hand lettering, you wouldn't have to sketch it out. But I want these to be perfect, and I don't have very many chances. I've literally only got these 5 pages and 5 frames. So I really want to try and do the best I can. So there's a couple different things that you can use for hand lettering, and they all kind of are various different costs. The cheapest of all is this Liquimark hand lettering pen that I got at the Dollar Tree, and it's, you know, just a fine tip hand lettering pen, works perfectly well. The next cheapest is going to be a Sharpie, which I just use the fine tip Sharpie, and not the ultra fine, but just the regular fine tip Sharpie. And then finally, you could use a Faber-Castell hand lettering pen, and this again is in the fine tip. And this one is considerably more. I think we picked this up at Michael's or Hobby Lobby, but this one does cost a lot more. Most everybody has a Sharpie around, so you can achieve this with a Sharpie or a Crayola marker. I love Crayola markers, but I wanted to do black, and the Crayola marker comes out gray, so it's weird. So anyways, I'm going to get these trimmed down to 8.5 by 11, and we will get started on one of the quotes. So now that I've got it sketched out in pencil, I'm going to begin to fill it in with one of these markers. Ideally for hand lettering, you would actually just write them out with kind of a brush tip pen, but the easiest way that I've found to do it is to sketch it out, fill it in, and then go back and add all of the downstrokes. So it's kind of like a false hand lettering, but anybody can do it this way. So I'm going to go in and start by just tracing out the word as I wrote it and correcting any small strokes that I didn't like in the pencil. again. And I do kind of like how this pen is actually a little more muted. It's not quite the gray that the Crayola pen is, but it's not so dark as this. I'm going to come in, and anything that would be considered a downstroke on your letter is going to get thickened. And so on the S, this is the downstroke. I'm going to just swoop out a little bit on the outside, and then I usually like to go back over my lines just a little bit to give them a little bit of variation in the color on the letter. So that's the S darkened. I'm going to go through and darken some of these other letters and show you what it looks like. So that's what it looks like thickened up. It's a little bit different than the rest of these. Now that the art's been created, I'm going to take these 5 mismatchy frames and paint them all one unified color. I got these 5 frames at the Goodwill for all less than $1 a piece. They all have a very similar look to them, even though they are very different frames. The paint I'm using today is the Waverly Chalk Paint in Ballet Slipper. I happened to have this on hand. So carefully remove the glass from the frame. Once you've got the glass removed, you can give this a good wipe down just to make sure there's no dust or dirt or anything on there. I've already done that. So I'm going to start painting. And for chalk paint, you can use the little makeup sponges that I like to use for stenciling, or you can use a sponge brush or even a regular paintbrush. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope that this video inspires you to take something that you like and turn it into something that you love, and maybe see the beauty in something that you've just found randomly and make it fabulous. So I'm really happy with the projects that we did today, and I now have a fun bag to take to the store with me when I go grocery shopping later, and I'm excited to wear this dress, and I cannot wait for you guys to see what we end up doing with all of the quotes that we did today. So as always, anything that I used in this video I will link for you down below. Those links are Amazon affiliate links and help support this channel, so please consider utilizing those links. And don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and comment below what your favorite project we did today was. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. We are so close to 100 subscribers. See, even Metal Gear, my dog, wants you to subscribe. So please, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and subscribe. When we get to 100 subscribers, I do have a little bit of a fun surprise waiting in the wings. And again, thank you guys so much for watching today. See you later. Bye.